If I was one of the children that Anakin tried to kill, I mean, I'd have ended the trilogy right there.
Put on your red shoes and dance the blues.
What would you say to somebody who's just starting this course or just starting out as a filmmaker?
Don't do it. It's a trap.
So, what was your first project?
In my life? Probably shapes. Probably 2D shapes. I learnt square and circles and triangles. Oh, my first film project. Oh, right, sorry. I can't remember. I think my first film project was a movie called Harold and Margaret, which was conceived a couple of years earlier at school as a GCSE piece about 2 serial killers called Harold and Margaret. And I just wanted to breathe new life into those characters because I kind of liked the idea of sort of elderly serial killers.
So this couple comes swanning out and they're holding hands and Richie's shouting, "Oi, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo?" They didn't say nothing, but it's like Richie says, you don't mind fags, but you shouldn't have to look at it.
Gays.
I'm sorry?
Gays. Homosexuals. Human beings.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cause offence.
No, carry on. Good story.
But yeah, it's like he says, you don't mind them, but it makes him feel uncomfortable. It's like them getting married and everything. I'm sure they're happy, but what about the rest of us?
Us?
Church weddings, they're not like what they used to be.
Anyone would think you were a homophobe.
No.
Margaret, what are you doing?
Hold on a sec.
My father wasn't a religious man, but he didn't force it on us or anything like that.
I think for everyone for the rest of time, the first year will always be a baptism by fire, in the same way Harold and Margaret was, because it's just the type of education from school to college is always a shock, and from college to university is a bit of a shock, because you're sort of told you have to go out and figure things out for yourself, which is the way it should be, but it is frightening when you are just like, you know, a tiny little person who doesn't know anything about the world. I'm going to say this with gender equality, grow some balls or grow a harder vagina, because I think you really need to you can't mess around. Don't worry about bugging people when it comes to collaborating. You've just got to really go for it, and that is the only way you can make a movie, because if you're directing and producing at the same time and writing and this, that, the other, you're heading up the pack and everyone is looking to you and you've just got to do it. So just do it.
I've always sort of had a passion for film and TV. I mean, I sort of grew up watching quite a few films and TV shows which I'm really passionate about. Say sort of definitely Star Wars and James Bond. They were very key to my childhood. And then sort of when I was sort of just about old enough, I started to look into the history of them and how the films were made, and watched lots of documentaries on both of them. And that then triggered my interest in other films and the history of film overall, and also television. And so it just felt kind of natural for me to want to work in this field. So my film is called The Killing. It's about a private investigator whose brother has been framed for murder, and she goes and tries to clear his name because they had a close relationship growing up. And because I wanted something a bit different in this, I needed a twist there, and the twist being that she's actually one who framed him for murder, but she didn't realise this throughout the course of her investigation until the very end. And shows like Sherlock and Broadchurch were quite a heavy influence, because certainly in something like Broadchurch there's quite a sort of big twist at the end of the first series of that you may or may not see coming. And then Churches overall, because that's a show I'm quite a big fan of, and so those were the two key influences for me. And but I kind of wanted to of course give it my own little touch as well by it just being a bit more personal, I suppose.
Jill and I spent so many hours together. She once said to me,
Emma, I'm never happier than I am when I'm with you. Please, don't ever leave me, because I love you.
She didn't mean it though. Because after that, it all changed.
Hey babe, I just got to drop by to see how are you doing. Where's my brother? What the fuck, Jill?
Jill takes the 5 a.m. bus every day. So that's all I'll do.
Shut up, you fucking whore!
The first project I ever did was about 4 years ago now. It was the first time I'd ever really picked up a camera. And it was a minute movie, and it wasn't very good. It took me 3 attempts to film it. One because of lighting and sound. The sound all went wrong because I didn't really know what I was doing. The second time it snowed. And the third time I finally got it right, but it was still a little bit rubbish, to be honest. Well, I say a little bit, that's a bit of an understatement, but it was pretty terrible. But yeah, it wasn't great. I mean, looking at where I started and where I am now, I'm definitely a lot more confident with what I'm doing. I've got a better understanding of the whole of the sort of TV industry and the film industry. And I've really just managed to develop my ideas and produce things that are a lot better than where I started. From the very beginning of the TV debate show, wow. It was, for a start, it was a complete nightmare. It was something that I never thought was going to be achievable. You know, I kind of looked at the brief we'd been given and I was like, no, this is not possible, because there was so much expected from that brief. But after getting into it a bit, you know, the paperwork and stuff, it was pretty similar to what I'd already done, so that wasn't all that different. But the challenges came when it was getting people involved. So like, I needed a presenter, I needed a crew, which is something I've not been used to, because I've been very used to just doing things on my own. And getting people on board was really difficult, especially getting people to try and do it for free, and finding a time when all these different people are free to work at the same time. And it was a complete nightmare. And throughout the journey of that project, you know, I had so many people come and go, people who were committed and then had to drop out for whatever reason. But in the end, it was all worth it. And when I saw the finished product, I couldn't have been happier, to be honest. I think it went better than I ever expected it to.
Hello, it's Friday the 22nd of April and we're live from New College, Nottingham. I'm George Lamb and this is The Great Debate. I'd like to welcome our audience here today and our panellists. Let's meet them.
Hello, I'm Lucy Coates and I'm from Newcastle, North East England.
Hi, I'm Sophie Butler and I live in Nottingham.
My name is Sarah Gilkinson, I'm also from Nottingham.
My name is James Fry and I'm also from Nottingham.
So today we're looking at the topic, should the voting age be lowered to 16? This is a hot topic right now, especially with the EU referendum. So I'm going to just throw it out there to what you guys think. If we start with you, Lucy.
Yes, I am very for lowering the voting age to 16 because, you know, we've got to give people the choice these days, and younger people are the future at the end of the day.
Okay, we'll pass it over to Sarah.
So Katie mentioned the word choice. I think at age 16 they have enough decisions to make in their lives without having to make the decision or have the pressures making the decision who runs the country. Agree, James?
I do agree. I think at 16, 17 there's a lot of responsibilities, a lot of external pressure and stress from all sorts of sources, deciding whether you want to carry on with education, further education, into job, and you just don't need to have this on your plate at the same time when there's so much else to focus on.
At 16, you're starting to mature. And I mean, not only can you do things such as have consent to have sex and be in relationships, but also you have the consent to join the army. And I mean, if we are letting young people take charge of the country at war, then why on earth can't they vote? Because I mean, surely that's...
Well, you're not actually in a battle position until you're 18, so it's actually education until you're 18 anyway, so...
Yeah, but they are still part of the armed forces, they are still taking control, they are still...
Have you seen Full Metal Jacket?
I progressed very slowly to begin with. I think as a lot of people do, like, you know, you go through phases of being interested and not being interested. But I think the thing that really made me stick at it was the fact that I love music. Like, some people, like, you know, they're really like, you know, they're really intelligent, you know, they're really academic or they're really sports orientated or something. Whereas for me, like, everything in my life revolves around music.
This is not a loving couple. There's a secret that looks to tear them apart. For one, it's dropping the burden and the pursuing of a new way of life. For the other, it's the fucked upness of reality, spiralling uncontrollably in the situation.
I think since starting the course, I find it easy to talk to people because starting the course, I came into it with more theatre experience than television or film experience. And the two obviously overlap somewhat, but it's more the technical side that I've grown with. But as a person, I think I'm more comfortable with who I am as myself, because when you create art, and that's essentially what film is, you show something that was inside of your brain, and it's something that you create. I don't really know how to word it, but when you create something, you are exposing a part of who you are to the world. And I think if you become comfortable with that, like I don't mind showing people my films anymore, I think if you become comfortable with that, you become more comfortable with yourself. So I would say through doing this course, I've become more comfortable with who I am as Lewis Bell. My biggest influences have all been Eastern. Just out of pure coincidence, I was searching on YouTube, and I don't even know what I was looking for, but I found this YouTube channel called Vidsy. It's got a lot of independent Eastern filmmakers on it, and it's a lot about drama and family ties and stuff like that. And so I based my drama last year, Blood is Thicker, around that, the idea of family ties as opposed to more romantic ties, which are more typical for Western dramas. And the animated versions of Eastern cinema as well, so like Ponyo, for example, I think then, because they're not limited to having a physical camera because it's all animated, I think like the shots they can get is really interesting. Yeah, in terms of colour as well, and like they're not, because it's animated, they're not bound to the laws of physics, and so they could do anything. It's amazing. I think it's really interesting.
I think the hardest part of filmmaking is getting everyone together, really. But once everything's in place, you know, you've got your actors, you've got your crew, you've got, you know, locations, your costumes, everything, then it all comes together brilliantly. And for example, one of the shoots I was on a few weeks ago was a 5-day shoot. So, you know, a few of my friends here at the college really helped me out. I've also had some other people from across the country come help me out as well. So, yeah, it's been really good. My documentary is called Trident, Is It Worth It? And it's focusing on Trident itself, which is a nuclear deterrent in, in England and the UK, and why we particularly need it. So I've interviewed a Hiroshima survivor called Setsuko-san, and that was in London a couple of weeks ago. And she's been the main focal point of this documentary to, kind of show the dangers of nuclear weapons and how, it affects us, and why we're spending so much money on it when we don't necessarily use them. They're just kind of like there for just kind of like flex our muscles kind of thing at other nations. So they kind of just show the relevance of them, really.
I think I definitely want to work on television, preferably for a soap, preferably Emmerdale at the minute, because it's my favourite, but any soap, any part of TV, just to start off with, step my foot in the door, and then hopefully Emmerdale. The night before was awful, because at the last minute, one of my panellists let me know that his brother wasn't available now, but he'd still come, but his brother was his lift, but I couldn't sort out how he was going to get there till the next day, and then when I phoned him the next day, he was in bed, and he was all like, oh, I don't think I'm going to make it on time. So I was obviously freaking out, and it was just a whole nightmare. It was horrible.
Who stood in for you?
In the end, Sarah and Sophie stood in as panellists, so it wasn't too bad. I was still freaking out, though.
Who else was on your panel?
My dad was one of the panellists, and a man called Bobby was also a panellist, and then George was my presenter.
So, 5 seconds on air, how are you feeling?
Freaking out because I hadn't really had a chance to practice in the gallery, so I wasn't quite sure what I was doing or what was going to happen, and then ended up doing on air, and I was just I had the choice between freaking out and running out of the room or holding it together and staying, which I just about managed, so yeah.
And we are debating, should euthanasia be legalised in the UK? And we've got a great panel to talk about this.
I would go against euthanasia, because there's a natural process of birth and death which exists in the universe, and euthanasia interferes with that. It's cutting on a natural process. The doctors swear something called a Hippocratic Oath, and part of that says, this is a modern version, most especially I must tread with care in matters of life and death. If it is given to me to save a life, all thanks. But it may also be within my power to take a life. This awesome responsibility must be faced with great humbleness and awareness of my own frailty. Above all, I must not play God. And to legalise euthanasia opens the door to people playing God with people's lives.
Thank you very much. I'll throw it over to this side.
The way I'd respond to that, firstly, is in response to the natural process argument. I think there's a lot of things in life that aren't natural. For example, medicine. So if people are ill, they use medicine to make themselves feel better. You know, if somebody's got, for example, I know in a lot of cases where euthanasia is considered, it's when people have got terminal illnesses and they're on medicine to push themselves through, but sometimes the medicine isn't, sufficient and they're still suffering quite a lot. In regards to the religious argument and playing God, if not everyone's Christian, not everyone's religious, so that might not apply to them because of, they might be atheist or their opinions might not kind of echo that.
I'd like to say that until such times as a foolproof system, method of deciding whether a person can be euthanized or not, until something legal and totally foolproof to stop the greedy relatives getting their hands on money that they wouldn't otherwise get their hands on, and things of that nature, then I think it's not to be considered.
My first film was A Touch of Evil, which is about a guy who's cheating on his girlfriend with another woman, and basically it's her trying to get revenge on him by framing him for raping her. I feel like I like to go towards a dark element, like sort of Fight Club and Memento, just because I feel like nobody ever does that anymore, and there's only a few films that you ever see with that kind of sort of dark setting and dark story towards it. I'd say for making films would be, my influences for making films would be Chris Nolan, Tarantino, Scorsese, just like, it sort of depends on what genre I'm watching. So for sort of a thriller, psychological thriller would be Nolan. For like a old gangster film would be Scorsese, and like a old like sort of, I don't know what you'd class Tarantino films as, just like gory, bloody gory films would just be Tarantino. And story-wise as well, because I really like Tarantino's like dialogues and this whole stories for the film.
Sorry to hear about your brother, man. Yeah, I'm gonna find out what happened to him. You got a drink? I don't think so, no. Try anything? Yeah. Oh, where we going again? It's just down here. It's not that far. Come on, it's over. It's just there on the right. This way you killed my brother.
And action.
general view on filmmaking is that it is reserved for those who are fortunate enough to be a little richer than everybody else. That it's all champagne, red carpets and awards. While this does ring true for a small percentage of filmmakers, the reality for the vast majority is a little different.
It's not glamorous, you know, it's not Hollywood. I don't know anybody that's managed to get to Hollywood yet. I don't know anyone that's won an Oscar.
When you are earning money, my goodness, it's a really fruitful industry to be in, but it's also a very, very long slog to get there. Massive slog.
My name is Ollie Braybrook, and this is my journey of discovery in filmmaking. At University of Nottingham's new theatre, I invited the crew to see our preparations for an ambitious independent short film called Victim Recycled.
It's a surreal drama about the endless circle of domestic abuse. It's quite surreal, it's quite hard, it's quite a dark subject, it's quite a hard subject to deal with, but yeah, it's cool. My role is a producer, so I've helped organise the locations, crew, cast, equipment, that kind of stuff, and yeah, I'm also helping out a little bit on set. I'm assistant director on set as well.
This project was amongst the first I produced outside of an educational environment, so I was interested in talking to filmmakers who had been around a little longer than me and finding out about their initial impression of the industry.
So the biggest challenge for me initially was access to kit, access to equipment. People were still shooting on 16mm and 35mm back then, even 8mm. So they were talking about if you wanted to be a sort of serious short filmmaker, you'd have to have serious money to get to shoot on film. So at the time, that was the biggest challenge, was just getting access to kit first, trying to make something look good with the kit you had.
I was started making films in a safe environment as education, and I realised that not everybody's a team player, not everybody collaborates, not everyone likes to collaborate. And that's the part I love. I love the human part of filmmaking. I love the fact that I managed to get all these people to this location to create this beautiful film. But not everybody is that way, and I found that, and I found it very difficult.
On Victim Recycled, the vast majority of the cast and crew were in the early stages of their respective careers. During these initial times, those of us looking to get into film have to make sacrifices, with the biggest being...
You've got to work for free. That's it. You've got to. So you know the basics, how to turn the camera on. Okay, but until you're on set and you're doing it for real, on schedule with professional people, you don't really get how filmmaking works.
But then if you've got family, you've got kids, you've got a partner, you've got parents or anything, the time factor is going to impact, because it's shooting evening and weekends, you're always away, or even you're editing all weekend, that has an impact. But if you've got supportive friends and family, then they'll understand that it's part of your dream. Similarly, if you're making sacrifices, then it's your kind of obligation really to make the best film you can for both your cast, your crew, and also your family, so that the sacrifices are worthwhile.
As we approached the halfway stage of production for Victim Recycled, a few of the crew members and myself sat down with the documentary crew to talk about our desires for this film and for our future careers.
Yeah, just a bit more recognition, I guess, more than anything. Outside of my own productions, this is the first sort of short film I produced. So yeah, to sort of get my name out there and hopefully get known amongst the film community would be quite good. That's a bit of recognition more than anything.
End goal is being able to work on either TV dramas or anything like that, or even big budget films where I'm able to be DOP and be able to have that kind of recognition. I don't want to be famous or anything, I just want to have a good recognition or anything, that I'm able to have the experience and have the ability to be able to do a certain amount of work.
I want to make something that I'm really proud of and that people think, damn, that's a really good piece of work. That's basically it. I'm not really fussed about the money, I just want to make something that's going to make an impression on someone.
I took a break from the set of Victim Recycled to head to the Broadway cinema in Nottingham, where one of my early films, An Imperfect Reflection, was being shown as part of Short Stack. The crew caught up with me after the screening.
Yeah, so just had one of my short films shown at Short Stack. It's the first time I've had a film shown on the big screen, so I was quite happy about that. It's got a nice round of applause at the end, so it was well received, quite happy.
There's a short film showing, so it's not a festival or anything like that, but it's a good opportunity for the filmmakers in the Midlands particularly to showcase their shows. It's a good opportunity for them to get noticed. There's a bit of a networking event as well, so everybody's at the bar now having a bit of a drink and mingling a little bit.
I took the opportunity to speak to other filmmakers at the event. Vaughan Teufel also had a short film shown called The Captain. I asked him what advice he could give to young filmmakers.
Just keep making films, be resilient, be defiant, be quite unreasonable if you truly have a vision for what you want to do, but do take on other people's advice, that surround yourself with good supportive people. If they're not and they let you down, too many times or something and they don't have good enough reasons, I usually give people 3 chances in personal life, but in business probably about 2.
As we wrapped on the final day of Victim Recycled, I was reminded of some vital advice which I will make sure to keep with me as my career unfolds.
Everybody has to help each other, and that goes back to my point previously about the fact that you've got to treat people right, and that's the big bit of advice. Treat people right. Those that are helping you, make sure they get gratitude at the very least. Buy someone a pint or a cup of coffee or whatever as thank you for them doing your film. They'll remember you. But if you treat them badly once, they'll remember that, and then they'll go and tell 10 people also. It's that whole thing about customer service. The same applies to filmmaking.
Be helpful, be friendly, be kind, okay, because they're the main tools, okay, and with that ambition, okay, you can come across as a really passionate filmmaker, but you can just leave it there.
So I think my one bit of advice is really sort of be nice.